The world belongs to the loud, or at least that's what they want you to believe. They shout to be seen, argue to be right, and mistake reaction for strength. But the men who truly hold power, they don't raise their voices. They don't rush to explain. They simply watch and wait. Every empire, every hierarchy, every room has one person who never reacts, the one whose silence feels heavier than everyone else's words. He speaks rarely, but when he does, the air changes. That isn't luck. That's design. Stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy, because the man who controls his reaction controls the rhythm of everyone around him. He's not fighting the noise, he's directing it. Tonight, we decode the Machiavellian secret most people never see. The subtle power of people who never react. The room goes silent after the insult. Everyone turns to him, waiting. They expect anger, defense, something loud. But he does nothing. His eyes don't flinch. He simply watches. And suddenly, the crowd isn't sure who's in control anymore. That's when the truth surfaces. The one who reacts first never holds the power. Modern men are taught to equate speed with strength. The faster you respond, the stronger you appear. It's the lie of the modern age, that dominance must be visible, that emotion must prove conviction. Every platform, every argument, every provocation rewards the man who moves fast. But what if that speed isn't power at all? What if it's proof of obedience? Obedience to the person who pushed you. Reaction feels righteous because it feels alive. You sense movement, momentum, purpose. But beneath that rush hides weakness. Your rhythm is no longer yours. Every time you react, someone else decides your timing. They press, you flinch. They speak, you explain. They whisper, and you panic to respond. It feels like power, but it's just emotional choreography. The illusion of reaction is seductive because it flatters the ego. It convinces you that expression equals dominance, that saying what's on your mind makes you untouchable. But in reality, visibility is vulnerability. The loudest man in the room reveals his insecurities first. The one who stays silent forces everyone else to reveal theirs. People fear what they can't read, not what they can predict. The truly powerful understand this law instinctively. They don't rush to clarify, defend, or prove. They allow silence to expand until it becomes pressure. That pressure exposes the truth faster than anger ever could. While everyone else scrambles to respond, they collect data. Every tone, every frown, every word said too quickly. They know that control isn't about reacting. It's about deciding when something deserves a reaction at all. Stillness is often mistaken for weakness, but it's the opposite. It's strategic waiting. It's the refusal to dance to another man's tempo. The one who reacts first plays the opponent's game. The one who waits rewrites the game entirely. This is the first test of psychological power. Can you stay calm while being provoked? Can you withhold expression until emotion loses its leverage? Can you let others expose their impatience while you remain still? Because when the room expects motion and you give them silence, the balance of power reverses. They start watching you. They start second-guessing themselves, and without realizing it, they begin to move around your stillness. That's how power begins. Not with noise, but with control. The man who owns his reaction owns the environment. And the man who owns the environment never needs to raise his voice. But to understand why restraint feels so unnatural and so dangerous, we have to uncover the hidden mechanism behind it. That brings us to the next truth, the hidden law of reaction. Here's the law no one tells you. The moment you react, you surrender control. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are, how good your argument sounds, or how justified your feelings may be. The second someone can provoke emotion in you, they own a piece of your focus, and focus is the rawest form of power. Every manipulator, every strategist, every subtle player in this world understands this law instinctively. They don't need to defeat you. They just need to move you. Once they can make you move, your emotions become their map. Watch any confrontation and you'll see it unfold in seconds. One person pokes, the other flinches. The flinch becomes rhythm. And from that moment, the game is no longer equal. The provocateur now controls the tempo, when to speak, when to pause, when to make you justify yourself. They've taken the lead not through force, but through timing. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He taught that control over tempo is the highest form of dominance. The powerful don't always act, they dictate when action becomes necessary. That's why they can afford patience, because while the world scrambles for instant response, they wait for perfect leverage. Think of every time someone has tried to get under your skin. A passive-aggressive comment, a public challenge, a quiet insult designed to make you defend yourself. If you answered instantly, you lost twice, once in energy and once in mystery. Your reaction revealed what matters to you, and that's information they can now use. Every reaction is a confession. It tells others where your ego lives, what wounds still bleed, what topics can shake your frame. Even your silence can betray you if it's forced, but deliberate stillness, that's something else entirely. Deliberate stillness makes others nervous. They start trying to fill it, to explain themselves, to guess what you're thinking. Their insecurity exposes their motives. Your silence, if intentional, becomes a weapon that draws truth out of people without asking a single question. This is the hidden law of reaction. Whoever controls the emotional tempo controls the room. The loud don't dominate, they reveal. The composed don't submit, they observe. And observation, over time, becomes control. Calmness is not absence of feeling, it's strategic containment. You can feel anger, fear, or disappointment deeply, but if you control its expression, you transform it from weakness into data. Every insult becomes a test. Every provocation becomes a chance to practice the discipline of timing. This doesn't mean you never respond. It means you choose when and how to respond, after emotion has cooled, when logic has sharpened, and when your reaction serves purpose instead of ego. The reactive man needs to be seen. The strategic man needs to be effective. Understand this. In every human interaction, emotion is currency. If you spend it too freely, you devalue yourself. But if you conserve it, people start paying attention to every expression, every pause, every word. Your restraint creates psychological gravity, a quiet pressure that makes others orbit around your stillness. Once you master this law, you'll notice something eerie. People start over-explaining around you. They start volunteering information you never asked for. They mistake your calm for judgment and rush to fill the silence. What they don't realize is, that's exactly what you wanted. Because while they're trying to decode your reaction, you're decoding them. That's why silence always wins. It collects more intelligence than words ever could. But every form of control has a price. When you start living with restraint, you'll feel the weight of everything you no longer express. And that emotional cost, the toll of staying still while others lose control, becomes your next lesson. The cost of emotion. Every time you react, you pay a price. Not always in money, not even in reputation. You pay with something far more valuable: clarity. Emotion clouds precision. It blurs what's real and what's strategic. When you react from emotion, you stop seeing the situation. You start feeling it. And feelings don't calculate. They consume. The reactive man wakes up exhausted, not from work but from overexposure. He spent the entire day defending himself against invisible enemies, opinions, assumptions, provocations that didn't deserve his energy. He calls it passion, but it's chaos in disguise, because every reaction burns attention, and attention is the currency of power. When you lose your emotional control, you don't just lose focus, you lose position. You become predictable. People learn exactly what triggers you, how to disarm you, and when to use silence against you. That's the hidden consequence of reaction. Once others can read your emotions, they can choreograph your behavior. The motion makes you visible, and visibility without control is exposure. The calm man, on the other hand, is unreadable. He doesn't hide. He simply doesn't broadcast. His emotions exist, but they're private property, not public entertainment. People can't manipulate what they can't measure. And yet, silence has a cost, too. It's not easy to hold composure when provoked. It feels like you're swallowing fire. But that's the point. That burn you feel is the ego dying, one reaction at a time. And that death is necessary. Because until your emotions stop controlling you, someone else always will. That's why most people never master restraint. They want respect, but they also want release. They crave control, but they can't stand still long enough to earn it. So they keep reacting, leaking authority with every outburst, every explanation, every need to be understood. Machiavelli warned that power isn't lost through defeat, it's lost through exposure. The man who must constantly prove himself reveals that he doubts himself. And doubt, once seen, never disappears. That's the true cost of emotion: permanent transparency. Control doesn't mean coldness. It means choosing where your energy lives. You can care deeply and still move slowly. You can feel everything and still say nothing. Because silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon designed to protect your focus. Every second you don't react, you gain leverage. Every moment you hold your frame, you collect data. And when you finally decide to move, your motion will be so precise it feels inevitable. That's the reward for patience. When you finally act, it's not reaction, it's calculation. But to reach that level, you must understand the deeper strategy beneath stillness, the principle that Machiavelli built entire empires on. The next step reveals that law, the Machiavellian principle of stillness. Stillness is not the absence of motion, it's the mastery of timing. In a world addicted to movement, the one who stays still becomes an anomaly. People don't understand him, and what they don't understand, they fear. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He observed that those who dominate history rarely move first. They wait, they watch, they let others burn their energy in public battles. By the time the dust settles, the calm strategist steps forward, untouched, decisive, unhurried. Stillness is not silence, it's surveillance. It's the art of collecting more than you reveal. When everyone else is reacting, defending, explaining, you're decoding. Every overreaction is a signal. Every outburst is a confession. You start seeing patterns that impulsive men never notice. Their noise becomes your information. Their chaos becomes your camouflage. That's why power feels quiet. Real control doesn't need validation. It doesn't demand attention. It radiates precision, the kind that makes people second-guess every word they say around you. When you remain still in moments of chaos, people project meaning onto your silence. They start imagining what you're thinking. They create stories about your intentions, your plans, your limits. And those stories start guiding their behavior more than your actual words ever could. That's how stillness becomes strategy. It lets people trap themselves inside your mystery. But don't mistake stillness for passivity. Stillness is active awareness. It's the deliberate choice to conserve motion until the moment of maximum impact. When the strategist finally acts, it feels sudden, but it's not. It's a decision sharpened by patience, measured by observation, and executed with precision. That's why people call it ruthless, not because it's cruel, but because it's exact. The reactive man fights 10 small battles and wins none. The still man fights one and ends the war. Because when you control your movement, you control perception. And perception is the battlefield most people never learn to navigate. Think of a chessboard. Amateurs move constantly, desperate to look busy. Masters move rarely, but when they do, it changes everything. That's the rhythm of stillness. Each motion must shift the entire board. When you master this principle, time itself becomes your ally. While others chase urgency, you live in precision. You don't rush to fix, prove, or respond. You understand that every delay unsettles the impatient and strengthens the composed. Stillness is how power breathes. It's not about doing less. It's about doing only what matters. Because motion is expensive and focus is rare. The man who can remain calm while others collapse doesn't need to fight for control. He is control. And once you grasp this, you'll begin to see another truth forming in the silence. The one hidden beneath every conversation, every look, every pause. The mirror of control. When you stop reacting, something strange happens. People start reacting to you. They feel your silence like gravity. It pulls at their nerves, their confidence, their ego. They begin to reveal who they really are, not through confession, but through compulsion. Stillness turns you into a mirror, and a mirror never argues. It simply reflects. When people look at you and see no reaction, they're forced to confront their own reflection. Their insecurities echo back at them. Their intentions become visible. Their own energy, once aimed at you, collapses inward. That's the silent advantage of composure. It forces others to show their hand. A loud person hides behind volume. A calm person reveals truth without saying a word. Because silence doesn't give them what they want: attention, validation, conflict. It gives them what they fear: themselves. This is the mirror of control. You don't dominate people. You simply remove the noise that hides them. Most men try to control through explanation, argument, or defense. The strategist controls through observation. He doesn't need to predict what others will do. He lets them expose it naturally. Because when someone tries to provoke you and you stay calm, they feel naked. They overcompensate. They talk too much. They try too hard. And in that overextension, they reveal the blueprint of their mind. That's when influence becomes effortless. You don't push people. You let their own momentum guide them. When you remain emotionally still, others project meaning onto your silence. They start aligning themselves with what they think you expect. That's how control truly works. It's not about forcing compliance. It's about creating psychological direction. Machiavelli hinted at this dynamic centuries ago. The ruler who speaks less rules more, because silence implies confidence. It suggests that you know something they don't. And curiosity, once ignited, becomes obedience. People start chasing your approval simply to quiet their own uncertainty. This is how great negotiators, leaders, and tacticians operate. They understand that power isn't in persuasion, it's in presence. When you speak rarely, your words carry weight. When you react selectively, your boundaries become sacred. Every pause, every measured glance becomes communication. You've stopped competing for attention. Now attention competes for you. But this level of control demands discipline. You must resist the temptation to fill silence, even when it's uncomfortable. You must let others reveal themselves completely before you decide your next move. Because once you start talking to ease tension, you give the tension away. The mirror of control doesn't need to move. It just needs to reflect clearly. And when others can't handle that reflection, they'll label you cold, distant, arrogant, anything to explain the pressure they feel in your presence. But the truth is simpler. You've just stopped performing. And nothing terrifies the performative more than authenticity under control. Yet there's another level beyond this, because reflection is only half the battle. To truly embody power, your composure must be internal, not just external. That brings us to the next evolution of mastery, the discipline of inner stillness. External stillness means nothing if your mind is loud. Anyone can stay quiet for a few seconds. Anyone can hold back a reaction for the sake of appearances. But true composure, the kind that radiates calm under chaos, begins long before the moment of provocation. It's built in solitude. It's trained in silence. Most men try to control their reactions when it's already too late. They wait until they're provoked, until adrenaline floods their system, until pride screams for release. By then, the battle is already lost. Stillness isn't born in conflict, it's born in discipline. The disciplined mind doesn't suppress emotion, it studies it. It watches every rise of irritation, every flicker of ego, every spark of impulse, not to deny them, but to understand them. Because the man who understands his emotions no longer fears them, and the man who doesn't fear them cannot be controlled through them. This is inner stillness, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can feel everything without showing anything. It's not apathy, it's control. It's when your thoughts and emotions obey your command instead of hijacking it. Think of it as the pause between stimulus and response. That tiny space is where freedom lives. Most people fill that space with reaction. They rush to defend, explain, or prove. But the strategist expands that space. He stretches it until the world moves slower, until he can see his impulses form and decide which ones deserve action. That pause becomes his weapon. Invisible, but decisive. Machiavelli would have called it governance. Ruling the state of your own mind before trying to rule anything external. If your inner world is chaotic, no strategy will save you. You'll always overreact, overcommit, overexplain. You'll mistake motion for progress and noise for control. That's how empires collapse from within, not through attack, but through inconsistency. Inner stillness turns you into your own strategist. You stop trying to win arguments and start trying to win seconds. Each second you remain calm while others panic is a victory. Each emotion you observe instead of obey is a conquest. Over time, those small wins become identity. You don't just act composed, you are composed. It's no longer a performance, it's instinct. And here's the paradox. Once you reach this level of inner control, you no longer feel the need to prove it. You don't flaunt your calmness. You don't correct others for losing theirs. You just watch. patient, detached, clear, because true stillness doesn't seek recognition. It's self-sufficient. That's the mark of inner mastery, when peace is no longer conditional. You're no longer calm because things are quiet. You're calm while they're not. And that calmness becomes contagious. People start moving differently around you. They lower their tone. They slow their pace. They begin to orbit your rhythm instead of pulling you into theirs. That's when stillness stops being discipline and starts becoming presence, which leads to the next transformation, the quiet power that follows total composure, the quiet power of presence. Presence is the final form of control. It's not what you say, or even what you do. It's what people feel when you enter a room. Some call it confidence, some call it aura. But in truth, it's just clarity made visible. The man who never reacts doesn't announce his power. It's already understood. He's not competing for attention. Attention naturally organizes itself around him. His stillness feels heavy, not because he's intimidating, but because he's consistent. He moves the same in chaos as he does in calm. And that consistency unnerves people who depend on unpredictability to control others. When your emotions no longer betray you, your presence begins to speak for you. Your silence becomes a language. Every pause you take, every look you give, every small motion you make, it all carries gravity. You've stopped seeking validation. You've stopped rushing to fill empty space, and because of that, the world leans toward you instead of away from you. People begin to measure themselves through your reactions. When you stay silent, they question their words. When you speak, they remember every syllable. When you leave, they replay everything you said, or didn't say, in their heads. That's what real presence does. It lingers after you're gone. This isn't charisma. Charisma entertains. Presence directs. Charisma pulls people in. Presence pulls them together. You're not trying to charm anyone. You're anchoring the energy of the room. You're the still point around which everyone else revolves. But presence comes with responsibility. If you carry stillness without empathy, it turns into intimidation. If you carry composure without intention, it turns into emptiness. Presence is not about superiority. It's about stability. You don't need to prove control. You embody it. And in a world full of noise, that's magnetic. Think about it. When chaos breaks out, everyone looks for the person who's calm. When people panic, they look for someone who isn't. That's leadership without words. It's power without motion. You don't demand authority. You create it by example. This is why those who master presence never rush. They walk slower. They speak less. They choose silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand that words lose value when they're used carelessly. Their restraint becomes ritual. Their stillness becomes atmosphere. And when they do act, when they finally decide to speak, move, or respond, the entire environment adjusts. It's not force, it's gravity. Because the man who doesn't react makes everyone else realize how easily they do. That's the quiet power of presence, invisible, effortless, and deeply unsettling. But like every form of power, it carries one last danger, because once you start to feel untouchable, pride begins to whisper. And pride, left unchecked, is how stillness collapses into silence. That's why the final step is not victory. It's awareness, the closing law of restraint, the final rule. Power is quiet until pride starts speaking for it. And that's where most men fall. Not to their enemies, not to their weaknesses, but to the subtle intoxication of control itself. When you master silence, people start bending around you. They lower their tone, measure their words, hesitate before disagreeing. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to enjoy it. You start mistaking people's restraint for your greatness. You start believing that your calm makes you untouchable. That's when stillness turns from discipline to arrogance, and from arrogance to isolation. The truth is, power doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you responsible. The moment your control becomes self-worship, it begins to rot. You lose the precision that made you powerful in the first place. Your patience turns to distance. Your observation turns to judgment. Your silence turns into walls. And the stillness that once drew people in begins to push them away. Machiavelli warned about this quietly. The ruler who forgets humility soon rules nothing. Because the moment you believe your power is absolute, you stop learning, you stop adjusting, you stop listening, and power that stops listening becomes predictable, the very thing it was built to overcome. The final rule is not about silence or composure or even control. It's about remembering that stillness exists to serve awareness, not ego. You mastered reaction so you could see clearly, not so you could look superior. You learned restraint to protect your peace, not to make others afraid of it. The highest level of power isn't dominance, it's balance, knowing when to stay still and when to finally move. Because the man who never reacts can survive anything, but the man who never feels becomes nothing. So keep your calm, but keep your humanity. Move with intent, but remember why you stopped reacting in the first place, not to rise above others, but to rise above yourself. Power ends the moment you believe it's yours. Power doesn't always come from dominance. Sometimes it's born from silence, the kind that makes others question themselves. The one who never reacts doesn't win through words. He wins through presence. While others are busy proving their worth, he observes their weaknesses. While they burn energy trying to be understood, he builds leverage from their noise. His calm isn't detachment, it's design. Every second he doesn't respond, he collects data. Every emotion he doesn't display, he keeps as strength. But remember this, stillness without purpose becomes arrogance. Control without awareness becomes isolation. The goal isn't to feel nothing. It's to own what you feel so deeply that no one can use it against you. That's the art Machiavelli understood. Real power doesn't move first. It moves last. So stay calm. Stay unreadable. And when you finally act, make sure silence itself remembers it.